This is the lesson 8.2 and 8.3 video, day 1, and what we're going to be doing is multiplying and factoring polynomials. We're going to start with a warm-up. In our first two examples, we're going to just review the distributive property and then how to factor out the greatest common factor in warm-up problems 3 and 4. Alright, so let's look at the first one. We want to distribute here. So remember that when we distribute, we have to multiply the 3 to both terms in parentheses. So 3 times x gives us a 3x. 3 times 7 gives us a positive 21. For the second one, we multiply the 2x by 3x. Alright, so 2x times 3x. Multiply the coefficients together first. So 2 times 3 gives us 6. And then x times x. So x times x. And remember, when we multiply powers with the same base, you add the exponents. And the exponents for both of those is 1. So x times x is x squared. So we have 6x squared here. Then 2x times the negative 1 is a negative 2x. Alright, so now we're going to do reverse distribution. This is the we're going to factor out the greatest common factor. So we have 3x plus 6. So let's look at the 3 and the 6. Let's look at those numbers. What is the greatest common factor? So 3 and 6. Factors of 3, 1 and 3. Factors of 6, 1 times 6 is 6, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So the greatest common one is going to be 3. Alright, so we're going to put that out in front here. And then what goes in parentheses? So we have 3x. Well, what's 3x divided by, what's 3 divided by 3? That's just 1, right? So we're just going to have 1x, or x, and then 6 divided by 3, that's going to be 2, and that's positive 2. Alright, there's our answer. And we have some step-by-step process to follow here in a couple problems. So number 4 here, we have 15x squared minus 20x. So 15 and 20, what are the common factors, or what's the greatest common factor? Well, the factors of 15 are 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. And then our factors for 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. Can we squeeze it in there? Yes, we can. Alright, the greatest common one is going to be 5. So we're going to put that out in front here. Now we look at our variables. We have an x squared and an x. What's the greatest common factor of our variables? Well, that's going to be the variable with the variable raised to the least power. So in this case, x. Alright, so we write that out in front, and then in parentheses we're dividing each term by the greatest common factor. So 15x squared divided by 5x. Well, 15 divided by 5 gives us 3. X squared divided by x, that's x. Okay, so if you're confused with that, when we divide powers with the same base, we subtract the exponents. Alright, so we have x squared divided by x. X is the base, so they have the same base, subtract the exponents. So that's going to equal x raised to the 2 minus 1, which is equal to x. So we have 3x there. and then we have 20x divided by 5x, or I should say a negative 20x divided by 5x. So negative 20 divided by 5, that's going to give us a negative 4. And then x divided by x, so x to the first divided by x to the first, that's going to equal x raised to the 1 minus 1, which is x to the 0, and x to the 0 is just 1. So there's your answer. Alright, the next part, we're going to simplify each expression by multiplying the coefficients and adding the exponents of the like bases. Alright, so number 5, we have 3x squared times 4x cubed. So how are we going to do a problem like this? Well, like it just said, we are going to multiply the coefficients first. So 3 times 4, that's going to give us 12. And then let's look at the exponents of the like bases. So we have an x and an x, so like bases. The exponents are 2 and 3. We're going to add those together. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So this simplifies to 12x to the 5th. Number 6, multiply the coefficients. Alright, so 12 and 3, that's going to give us 36. And then we have an x times an x to the 4th. So we have an x to the 1st times an x to the 4th. That's going to equal x to the 1 plus 4, which is an x to the 5th. So 36x to the 5th is our answer there. And then for number 7, we have a negative 2 times 7. That's going to give us a negative 14. And then we have x to the 5th times x to the 1st. That's going to be x to the 5 plus 1, which is x to the 6th. Alright, so when you're multiplying here like this with coefficients and common bases, so multiply the coefficients together first and then add the exponents of the like bases. Alright, problem number 1, multiplying a monomial by a trinomial. So we're going to use the distributive property to multiply the monomial by the trinomial. So, and then be sure to distribute to every term inside the parentheses. Okay, so a trinomial is a polynomial with 3 terms. So this is the trinomial right there, and then this is the monomial. That's just a polynomial with 1 term. Alright, so we have to distribute the x cubed to every single term in parentheses. Alright, so we're combining the different warm-ups that we just did. So we have an x cubed times 9x to the 4th. That's going to give us, so we'd multiply the coefficients, so 1 times 9, that gives us 9. And then it's going to be x to the 7th, because we're adding the 3 and the 4 together. And then we have, I'm just going to put the 1 here. So 1 times negative 2, that is a negative 2. And then we have an x cubed times x cubed. So we have powers with the same base. Add the exponents. So that's going to be x to the 6th. And then we have x cubed times 7. So 1 times 7 is 7. And then x cubed, we're not multiplying it by anything, so we just attach it. There's our answer. For the next one, we have a negative 5x times 3x cubed. So it's going to be negative 15. So a negative 5 times 3 is a negative 15. And then x times x to the 3rd, or x to the first times x to the third. That's going to give us 1 plus 3, x to the fourth. And then we have a negative 5x times the negative x squared. That's going to be a positive 5x cubed. And then a negative 5x plus 8, or I'm sorry, times negative 5x times 8. That's going to give us a negative 40x. So we distributed each of those terms. And then finally we have 4x times 2x cubed. So that's going to give us 8x to the fourth. Alright, 1 plus 3 is 4. Minus 4 times the negative 7 is the negative 28. And that's going to be x cubed, and then plus 4x squared. So there we got the negative 28x cubed, and then we multiply 4x times x. That gives us the 4x squared. Alright, in the second problem here, we're going to factor out a monomial, so reverse distribution. So we need to find the greatest common factor. That's what the GCF means. So GCF is greatest common factor. Alright, and so here are the steps to find the GCF. The first is to find the GCF of the numbers. And again, we already did this in our warm-up. We factored out. So these are the steps that I was talking about. So find the GCF of the numbers. So we have 5, we have 20, and we have 15. So 5, 20, 15. What's the greatest common factor? Well, 5, the factors of 5 are 1 and 5. The factors of 20 are 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. And then for 15, it's 1, 3, 5, and 15. So the greatest common factor of the numbers is going to be 5. So I'll put that there. Now, does each term have a variable? If so, the greatest common factor of the variables will be the variable raised to the smallest power. So each term does not have a variable in this case. So the negative 15 is a constant. Okay, so the answer to that one is no. So we go to 3, multiply the answers for number 1 and number 2. Well, we didn't have an answer for number 2. There wasn't a variable. Each term didn't have a variable. So the greatest common factor is just going to be 5. Okay. Now, to then determine what is left over and needs to be written in parentheses, we're going to divide each term by the greatest common factor. So what's going to go in parentheses? Divide each of these 3 terms by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1x cubed, or just x cubed. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So plus 4x. And then negative 15 divided by 5 is a negative 3. Alright, and if I were to distribute this, That's why we call it reverse distribution. If I distribute this, I would get this expression back. Alright, the next one. So we have 14, 42, and 21. So the first step is to find the greatest common factor of the numbers. Now we'll keep it positive. Just do the positive number. So for 14 we have 1, 2, 7, 14. For 42 we have 1, 2, 3, yep, 3, 4, no, 5, 6, yes, 6 and 7. So 42 divided by 3, 14. 42 divided by 2, 21, and then we have 42. And then we have 21. So 1, 3, 7, and 21. So the greatest common factor is going to be 7. So we'll write that there. Alright, now does each term have a variable? Yes, it does here. So we have an x to the fourth, an x cubed, and an x cubed. So the greatest common factor of the variables will be the variable raised to the smallest power. So in that case it's going to be x cubed. Now multiply these numbers, or not multiply the answers from 1 and 2. This is the greatest common factor of the whole expression here. So the greatest common factor of the whole expression is 7x cubed. To then determine what is left over and needs to be written in parentheses, divide each term by the greatest common factor. So we have 14x to the fourth divided by 7x cubed. Alright, so divide the coefficients first. 14 divided by 7 is 2. And then you have an x to the fourth divided by an x to the third. When you're dividing powers with the same base, you subtract their exponents. So this is going to equal x to the 4 minus 3, or x to the first, or just x. Alright, then we have a negative 42x cubed divided by 7x cubed. Divide the coefficients first. So negative 42 divided by 7, it's going to give us a negative 6. And then we have an x cubed divided by an x cubed. So subtract the exponents. So x raised to the 3 minus 3. So x to the 0 is just, anything raised to the 0 power is 1. So I just have a minus 6 right there. And then a 21 divided by 7. What's that going to give me? That's going to give me 21 divided by 7. That's a positive 3. And then an x cubed divided by an x cubed. Again, we're going to have x to the 0. So that's just going to be 1. So I just have 3 there. And so I can combine like terms inside parentheses. So I'm going to have 7x cubed times 2x. A negative 6 plus 3 is a negative 3. There's your answer. Okay. We're getting a little long on time, so we can save C for maybe an in-class example if you guys are confused with this. So we're going to go to the last part. Alright, so problem 3, we're going to be multiplying a binomial by a binomial. So a binomial is a polynomial with two terms. So that's a binomial because it has 1, 2 terms. And this is a binomial because it has 2 terms. So a polynomial with 2 terms. Alright, now to multiply a binomial by a binomial, we're going to use the FOIL method. And FOIL, if you remember, stands for first, outer, inner, and then last. So what do we mean by that? So we're going to multiply, what we're going to do first is multiply the first terms. So we have a 2x times 3x. So 2 times 3 is 6, x times x. So x to the first times x to the first gives us x to the second. Remember, multiply powers with the same base, add the exponents. Then we're going to multiply the outer terms. So 2x and a negative 7. So 2 times negative 7 is negative 14, and then x. Then we're going to do the inners. We're going to multiply the inner terms. So 4 and 3x. So that's going to give us a positive 12x. And then the last terms, 4 and negative 7, that's a negative 28. So here's the last terms that I multiplied together. We then can combine like terms. So we have 6x squared minus 2x minus 28. Alright, this right here, a negative 14x plus 12x gives me a negative 2x. So this is my final answer. Alright, in B, same thing. First, multiply the first terms. So x times 4x. So this is, remember, a 1x times a 4x. So 1 times 4 is 4. X times x is x squared. Then I'm going to multiply the outer terms. X and 3 gives me a 3x, positive. Now the inner terms. Negative 6 and 4x, that's going to be a negative 24x. And then finally, negative 6 and a positive 3. You multiply those together, you're going to get negative 18. Combine like terms, so we have 4x squared. And then we have combined like terms, 3x minus 24x gives us a negative 21x minus 18. There's your answer. Alright, we'll do one more. We'll do C here. So first, multiply the first terms. So 5x and a 2x. So 5 times 2 is 10. X times x is x squared. Then the outer terms, 5x and a positive 1, so it's going to give us a plus 5x. Then the inner terms, negative 3 times 2x, that's a negative 6x, and then the last terms, negative 3 and 1, multiply those together, you get negative 3. Combine like terms, so you have 10x squared, you have a positive 5x and a negative 6x, that's negative x minus 3. Alright, so know the video was a little long, in 25 minutes. Thanks for hanging in there. Again, this is the day 1 of 8.2 and 8.3. We will see you guys tomorrow.